Welcome to Coach Talk.
Hi everyone, it's great to be back with you.
Wow, it's been a little bit of a time delay this time, LJ, hasn't it? Because I've been away.
Yes, you've been doing some pretty cool things in this space of yours.
Yeah, I've been away. So
Although it never feels like time passes when we catch up.
No, but you know what? It's good to have a recording day.
Oh, I love our recording days.
We're back.
We are back. We're always back. Even though we do a number of recordings because we like to make sure that we show up every week because that's our standard for ourselves. And most importantly, we love to be able to connect with our listeners on a weekly basis.
Absolutely. So we had a very, very quick chat about what we were going to talk about today. And I mean a quick chat.
There's no such thing as a quick chat with us.
Because we are unscripted and we don't really plan, because we like to just roll and talk about what we talk about.
Absolutely. We are unapologetically real.
Absolutely. What are we going to talk about today?
So given that yesterday was Anzac Day,
Yep.
and I know that we both love to go to the dawn service.
Yeah.
And for my whole experience of the dawn service is a day of reflection.
Yeah.
And how blessed and lucky that I am to be living a life that I have now rather than 100 years ago.
You said to me just before we started recording that, and we were reflecting compared to 70, 80, 100 years ago to today, but you said to me along the lines of comparison to what we had when you and I were kids compared to what kids have or how they live today compared to how we lived years ago. And it was a realization for me that such a difference of how we were as children compared to children of today and what they have to go through in their schooling and their education compared to what we had as far as allowances, permissions, boundaries. There's such a difference, isn't there, in the way that we've been brought up and cultured compared to what kids and teenagers go through today. And then that expanded to everybody from then and now. There's when you think about it, it's only maybe 50 to 100 years in our existence in Australia, but it's a massive difference.
It is, and most people say that it's a generational thing, and of course it is. And then you get into the technology conversation like, oh, well, you didn't have phones and computers. That's true and correct.
Yeah.
However, every generation has their technology boom. I remember as a little person interviewing my great-grandmother who lived to be 103. Now, that woman, she was phenomenal. So 103, she mowed the lawns, swept her paths and decided to go for her morning nap and never woke up.
Right.
That was her last day on earth, was she tidied and she left things going. And I remember doing an interview with her and my grandmother around their life and how they grew up. And she was so beautifully reflective that, yes, they had the depression and the hard times. She goes, but I saw the Federation, I saw motor car, I saw electricity, I saw industrial revolution, man on the moon.
Yeah.
Television, the evolution of music. So even though by today's standards, that is not classed as technology, it very much is technology for the ages, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And every generation has a little bit of an argument with the generation before around standards, values, what's acceptable, what's not, and pushing boundaries. But one thing I've noticed through having a beautiful range of friends with kids of all different ages and, my friends are all different ages too, anywhere from like my dad's friends who are in their 90s right through to the young people that I know now. It's really interesting that all generations, their commonality is around standards, values and morals.
Yeah.
And those that hold true to standard values and morals always seem to bounce back better in their world, regardless of the challenges they face.
Yeah. Do you think there is a marked difference in standards, values and morals today compared to, say, 1960, 1950?
Absolutely, and without getting into the whole debate around, news and propaganda and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I guess if we're talking exceptionally broad here today. When the newspaper used to come out, it was actual factual news. When it comes out now, you don't really know who to believe and what to believe, and if they don't know enough about it, it seems to be a little bit made up, and it's so much harder to navigate. I feel very blessed that I'm not raising children in this current environment because my kids are a little bit older and they're very fortunate to have good heads on their shoulders, but it must be a navigational minefield for people trying to assist the future generation to be able to navigate what's real and what's not, and how to help them see that, yes, your world is very different to what we know, but your morals and your values and your standards, that's something that stands the test of time, regardless of whatever generation you are.
Yeah, I agree with that. Did you ever have a senior person say to you when you were a kid, you think you've got it tough? Back in my day.
Oh, yes. Wasn't that the standard thing back in my day? And every kid without fail, you can just feel yourself doing it now. You do the eye roll going, oh, here we go. And yet, let's be honest, how many times have you said that in the last 10 years back in my day and gone, holy heck, I sound like my nana or I sound like my parents. I'm like, oh, no.
And that was going to be my point. I was just about to say, I think I've said, every week for the last 10 years. Back in my day, I've become one of them. You talked about values a bit earlier. Let's go extreme a little bit. And I was watching the Anzac Parade in Melbourne yesterday morning, and the commentators were talking about how some people back in World War One, World War Two would change their age so they could join up.
Yes.
And go overseas with the army. And they were talking about a young lad who was 14 and a half years old, and he convinced the recruiters that he was 18.
Wow.
So at 14 and a half years old, this young kid has gone off to war, and I'm not an advocate of war. I'm not talking about whether it's good or bad, nothing like that. Yeah. I'm just saying factually this young kid has gone and joined up and gone across and overseas and fought for his country at the age of 14. Where if you look at, fast forward to today, what is the average 14-year-old or 14-and-a-half-year-old doing today online, playing games, out with their friends, studying for school exams? Yep. There's no concept. It's so different then and now, where you've got in a wartime era, the concept of what this young lad did compared to what a 14-year-old is doing now is chalk and cheese.
Absolutely. And I think when you think about like 100 years ago, when that 14-year-old, they would have seen many more challenges from an economic standpoint and a family standpoint. But two things always have stood out for me was the family unit. Every family had their rights and wrongs, but the family stood together. And most importantly, something that is very sad to look around now, that the community stood together. Yeah. Which is where that community pride comes in. And I know that we've spoken about community pride in tough times before in previous podcasts. And I guess they're the two things that really have stood out for me about the uniqueness of then and now. And from a reflection perspective around, even though we go through our own trials and tribulations, and by no means is this a way of diminishing whatever you're experiencing in your world at the moment. This is just a general conversation of perspective. We in Australia are exceptionally lucky. We really are exceptionally lucky. We're so far removed from the rest of the world in location, that we don't have a war on our doorstep.
Yeah.
Most families, even if it's exceptionally tough, they find a way. We, as a nation, are kind of built on the philosophy of the diggers. It's grab a shovel and dig.
Yeah, get to work.
Get to work.
Yeah.
And I think in Lost in Translation through reflection, unfortunately, somewhere along the line, and maybe it is that whole reliance on technology, and maybe it is because each generation tries to give their children the, better than what we had it, that sometimes I think it's in having that philosophy of trying to make our kids' world better, we're actually making their experience of their world worse.
Do you think that, and I wouldn't know, obviously 100 years ago I wasn't about, what's your opinion or perception on children, teenagers, say 50, 60, 70 plus years ago? We talk today as a community that children can be entitled. Teenagers can be entitled. Do you think there was an entitlement with the young children growing up into their teen years and beyond in the early 1900s, for example? Or do you think that that's evolved and changed to more of an entitlement now compared to what it was back then?
I can only speak for what I know of my experience growing up and my friends. It was very much still in, when I was growing up, around children are seen and not heard. You get to have an opinion when it is asked for. We were still taught to have our teachers by, we called our teachers by Mr. and Mrs., not these first name basis. So that's one of the biggest interesting things that I have noticed in our teaching professions. A number of schools allow the students to call their teachers by their first name. There's no way in here that we're just highlighting differences. Again, I think there's pros and cons on both sides, because being seen and not heard has created Generation X, and there's so many good reels on that if you're on socials around, generations having a bit of a dig at Generation X. But realistically, we were the last generation to have to be self-sufficient, because in a lot of ways our parents were absentee parents. I'm not going to say how old I am, but go Gen X. And that's all I'm going to say. Hey, Gen X has a broad thing, so I'm very happy to say I'm a Gen X, because it's, I don't know, it's not an age thing, it's an attitude thing.
It is. There are, and I like what you say. There's a lot of pros and cons. You say that, and I've heard that even when I was young, children should be seen, not heard. For me, I don't necessarily agree with that. I also like the concept that even kids of today or teenagers of today, I think they should have a voice. They should be able to express their feelings. They should be able to, if they're not sure about something or even in disagreement with something, I think it's important that they can communicate this with their parents and even with their friends and even with seniors, people, school teachers or people in the community. I think even young teenagers or people growing up need to learn and get that ability to be able to say what they're thinking and process why they feel a certain way. Where as a child back in the day, you will be seen, not heard. You're just told to clam up. And I think there are some benefits today with the way communication has progressed. There are pros and cons. You said it. You hit the nail on the head. There are pros and cons in different eras which can benefit us from childhood right up to our adult years.
Oh, 100%. I totally agree with that as well, from what you've just reiterated there, that please don't think that we're having a go at any one generation. We are just doing a bit of a looking back to look forward, to appreciate how far we've come from...
Except for Gen Z, they're hopeless.
I'm not
I'm
to
just
say
joking.
anything.
I'm joking.
Sometimes you do. Reflection's a good thing because it reminds you how far you have come and how lucky we are that now we actually do have a voice.
Yeah.
And from a communication standpoint of teaching our kids and our little people emotional intelligence, I think that's 100% a great thing, because the more emotional intelligence we have, the better we communicate our needs and hold our boundaries and share our values and connect on a different level. I might weigh in on a touchy subject, and we've sort of talked about this through various conversations around life has become very superficial, where, if I may say it, real people are not appreciated for their authenticity and their congruency, and fake is being worshipped, and that is seeing a lot of issues for our younger generation. There's no golden answer to that other than the fact to keep the lines of communication open and to keep having really good support systems around them so that they make a more informed choice based on actual fact rather than trend.
Yeah. Trend is huge these days.
Trend is unfortunately a bit of a red flag, realistically. And one of the best things we can do, regardless of what generation you are, is actually help our younger generation. So if you're 70, help your 60-year-olds, etc., because every generation has got something to value. We all need to learn how to communicate better. We all need to learn emotional intelligence. It's so important for our futures, and it's so important for our interpersonal connectedness.
Yeah. You said trend, and for me, looking back over the years, there's always been peer group pressure. Do you see a difference to peer group pressure back then to trend now?
I think it's on a completely different scale in terms of when you look at peer group pressure is replaced with the word trend.
Yeah.
I think in some respects. Now, this is just my personal view, so please don't hang me out to dry. I'm a very proud black sheep. I'm very, very proud black sheep. I've always had independent thought, much to my parents. I'm sure they pulled their hair out. However, it has served me and my journey very well to be of independent thought and to have questions so that I can make better informed choices. And I must say I instilled the need for curiosity and good work ethic and questioning for emotional intelligent choice into my kids as well. So I'm very proud of the fact that they are amazing humans and raising their families and doing amazing things. But from a trend perspective for modern day, I think every one of us who now has a device, good old mobile phone, all of us have a social responsibility to make sure that what we're putting out there is true and correct.
Yeah.
And to help our kids who are growing up with the device generation. I call it the device generation because, we didn't have phones, we talked.
Yep.
You grabbed a cup of coffee or you went bike riding. I think we were probably one of the last generations to actually have a great conversation. But the generations, and it's multiple, that are now device-driven.
Yeah.
We have a social and a moral obligation to help them see that what you put out does have repercussions. You may not be around to see it, but just because you text and don't get an emotional response, because emojis and all of those things can be read in 50 different ways, there's always a payoff. Everything we do in life is a choice. Every word we say has an effect.
Yep.
And our social duty as human beings is to recognise that realistically, yes, make a ripple, but make the right one.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it. For me, there's always been peer group pressure from school days right up to, and you see it in the workplace with adults. The word trend is, and you touched on this, and what you said was spot on. I just think trend has a far more, a wider outreach. Peer group pressure for me is localized. So you're with school friends, for example. Let's keep it in the schoolyard. You're with school friends and they want to wear a certain hat or they want to do a certain activity. That localized group could put peer group pressure on you to do that, where because of today's technology, internet, the web, access to anybody globally, the trend is wider reaching. The trend could be anywhere in the world. The trend may influence or affect someone in one country, and the trend may be generated and originated from another country.
Yeah.
So the trend is so wider in its reach than a localized peer group pressure. And I think that's evolved organically, even though it's technologically driven. That's happened because of the world is smaller. Because of we
Yes.
can talk to anyone, we can reach anyone, we can copy anyone, we can be influenced by anybody in the world because we have that access now to internet.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And isn't it funny how people now aspire to be an influencer on technology instead of being a person who holds influence through achievement? Can you?
There's a
Maybe I need
difference
to.
in that.
There is a difference in that. Maybe I need to explain that a little bit more. So, great if you're an influencer and out there, but realistically, your claim to fame is not bettering the lives of the people around you. It's just showcasing.
It's banging your own drum.
Yes.
Okay.
So being a person of influence through education, through a more positive ripple effect, is using your knowledge and your abilities that you've honed and your skills that you've honed to show self-leadership and actually look after the people left, right, above and below you, as far as regardless of where you are.
Yeah.
And I think being a person with influence is better than being an influencer. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. I'm hoping that I know we do, we have some younger people that listen into our podcast.
We do.
And hi, Dom.
One of the awesome humans that we know.
Hi, Dom.
Hi, Dom.
You know who you are.
Yeah.
We know who you are. Hi, Dom. So for this, and we can keep this fairly lighthearted, but for those that may be a little bit younger that do listen to us, why don't we take a little bit of a trip down memory lane and we'll share with each other. Let's just go one by one for a little bit.
Yep.
And we talk back when we were younger, because I'm sure some of these younger people now would be interested in, and they might have seen a little bit on other social platforms, maybe social media platforms, but tell me something that you would or would not have done back in your day as a younger person that someone today would have no idea about.
Well, when I was younger, my mum prided herself in making us matching clothes. She made all of our clothes.
Yeah.
And that was just a thing we did. So it's so embarrassing. I remember going to school and we all had the same coloured like trackies, because that's what you wore to school.
Yeah.
You wore trackies back then. And my brother had a blue stripe that went one way. I had a different coloured stripe that went a different way. And my sister had a stripe that went the other way. And that's how we knew whose clothes were who. The other thing that was really common was you grew into the sibling above you's clothes.
Correct. You did. Hand-me-downs.
You got the hand-me-downs.
Yeah.
So your older sibling was your op shop.
Yeah.
It was none of this, well, I need new things and I'll go out and get them. It was like the oldest one usually got most of the new things and everybody else just waited their turn for a very well-worn item, and was only on, if you were lucky, it was birthdays and Christmases that you got new clothing. One or two items of new clothing. But also, like, we used to get our school coloured pencils and our school uniform as Christmas presents.
Yeah.
Which I know sounds really miserly, but different time. Money was different, times were different, and I think appreciation for the little things was more heightened.
Yeah, yeah.
And let alone, that's a really funny memory. A really funny memory.
I used to tear the hell out of the knees on my jeans as a kid, and my mum would go off at me about holes in my jeans.
Did she patch them?
Yeah, so she put it, and the patch was always a different colour to the jeans, and so I'd have patches. But these days, torn jeans in the knees is like, it's fashion.
People pay huge money for torn clothes.
Yes, I was ahead of my time.
We wouldn't be caught. We wouldn't be caught yesterday in jeans that were torn.
What about, we talked about this quickly before we started recording, what about drinking out of the
hose?
Out of the hose.
If you were thirsty, you just you literally just found a tap in someone's garden and swigged a drink. You did.
No bike helmets?
No bike helmets, no. They didn't come in till I think I was a teenager. And even then they were horrible helmets.
Yeah. We only
motorbike helmets they had.
Motorbike helmets?
Motorbike helmets I had, and I must say I was very fortunate. One day I was riding with a motorbike helmet on my push bike because it saved my life, but that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah. We only used one type of sunscreen. It was called reef oil.
Oh, no, baby oil. You got the good old Johnson & Johnson's baby oil. You got lathered in the morning. Like, go out and fry in the sun. Okay. Always had a great tan.
How did you find someone's phone number to give them a call?
Oh, the phone book.
Yeah.
And the dial-up phone.
Yeah. One phone in the house?
One phone in the house, and it was always a dial-up. Do you remember when... This is showing our age so badly. Do you remember when the push-button phones came out?
Yep.
And how if you were just, wow, you must be really wealthy to have a push-button phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there were two phones because one would be in the master bedroom and if you were rich, and the other one would be somewhere in the kitchen or somewhere in the living area.
That was how you had a conference call. It was because you could talk both on the same phone.
Yeah.
That was your version of a conference call. That's hilarious.
And what about discipline? Did you...
Oh.
You had to do what Mum and Dad said?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There was no talking back. There was no...
You were just knocked 3 ways to Sunday and grounded till the ends of the earth, and wooden spoons, hairbrushes and belts.
I was going to mention the belt.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. People can't see your face right now, but you've just changed completely into like a face of trauma.
Yep. I was watching a snippet on one of the socials the other day. Here I go. Yes, I was on socials, and there was an Italian comic who's here in Melbourne. And this reminds me, because parents didn't even have to take the belt off. They'd just hang on to it and wiggle it. And you knew. you knew by the look that you were going to cop it when you got home. Yeah. You were in so much trouble. But if you were 5 minutes late, you had to make sure that you were immensely sorry and you meant it. None of this like throwaway lines like sorry, brah.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, brah.
What is that?
I don't know what sorry, brah means, or anything that ends in bra.
Or soz. That grates me.
Yeah,
so
I don't get that.
I don't get that because it's actually shows no remorse.
Yeah.
And it shows no accountability for actually saying I did the wrong thing.
Yeah, like back in the day, whether it's good or bad or indifferent, and I won't pass judgment on whether it was.
It's just our experience.
Go into that. But the belt went across the back of the legs, on the soft part of the back of the legs. You wouldn't play up again for a long time because that was...
We even had the meter ruler in school, like our teachers.
Yeah, we had the ruler. My mum had this, it was like a 30 centimetre long whacking stick. And it was about 5-7 centimetres wide, and it actually had written on it like whacking stick. She bought it from somewhere, and I still have it. And it was painted on it were things like it's saying, for boys that lie, for girls that scream, for dogs that bark. There's little things.
Yeah.
And it had a perfectly little shaped handle on it. And Mum used to carry that around, and okay, maybe I might have been naughty here and there when I was a kid. I was pretty bad. I was.
Black sheep.
Black sheep. I would cop this thing on my backside, whack. And so one day, I was probably about 8 or 9 or whatever years old, Mum's kind of given me a whack on the backside. And I've grabbed it out of her hand and I've cracked her across the backside with this whacking stick. How does that feel?
What, did you run for dear life?
And I ran for dear life. And where our house was, you could run through the kitchen, around the lounge room, you could do a whole lap and run right around the house. And, of course, me being young and fit and Mum being older, she'd run out of breath and couldn't catch me. I'm like, you can't catch me. But I didn't think too far enough ahead, knowing that Dad was coming home and he wears a belt.
And what was that famous saying? Wait till your father gets home.
Wait till your father gets home. And that's exactly what happened. Wait till your father gets home. It wasn't a good night for me. But, yeah, that's back then compared to now.
But that's what,
Yeah.
this is so digressing, but I always used to love the song Baba Black Sheep because I'm like, yes, that's my song. Because it was like, I'm happy to be different.
Very different. No bike helmets, riding, so we talked about that. What about, we used to pile into the back of the car with no seatbelts, like in a station wagon.
Just thinking no seatbelts.
No
and the
seatbelts.
karate chop arm if you're in the front seat.
Yes.
Mum and Dad, whoever was driving, whenever they had to sudden stop, would literally guillotine you through the chest with their arm coming out. It was an automatic reaction to stop you moving. Yeah. So in some respects, looking back, some things have evolved for the better, but some things for the worse.
Things just change.
Because I actually feel sad that kids aren't allowed to experience a cubby house without a permit in their backyard these days in a lot of places.
Yeah.
We used to ride our bikes from dusk till dawn on Saturday, Sunday, and Sunday was always family day. It was always roast. Sunday
Always.
roast with your extended family, and so there was a lot of good times too.
Oh, look, the best machine gun I ever owned was 2 pieces of wood nailed together to make a T-shape.
Potato
Spud
guns.
guns, yeah.
And the what
Cap
is it? The
guns.
garage band.
What was a garage band?
It was always like a box, and the drummer had the old garbage cans, and
Yes.
you just
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. I remember, all of that sort of stuff. What about there was only one dinner, and if you didn't eat it,
You got it for breakfast?
you got it for breakfast.
Yep.
And that night, you got nothing else.
Absolutely. I'm still a fan of that. My kids can attest to that one. Because food was scarce.
Yeah.
Food was scarce, and you did not waste.
No, and you couldn't have dessert because, in those days we called it sweets. You couldn't have sweets because you didn't finish your dinner.
That's right. So you didn't earn the right to have sweets.
No.
So in having a giggle looking back, what I'd really like to do is look forwards and let's appreciate some of the really cool stuff that we now get to play with.
Yeah.
On one hand, the ease and convenience of my mobile phone is great when it's used correctly.
Well, you're just carrying a computer in your hand these days, aren't you?
You
really?
are.
Yeah.
I like the fact that our cars are a little bit more comfortable. I like the fact that our homes are a little bit warmer.
What do you think about fitness? Like, people go to gyms these days where when you and I were kids, our fitness was either playing a sport or just playing outdoors.
We were functionally fit.
Yeah.
Our sports kept us fit. Our daily activities kept us fit because we always had chores. And they weren't a choice, and they weren't for pocket money. We had to help mow the lawns and sweep the paths and wash cars, put the garbage out, vacuum, dust. We had levels of responsibility from when we were very young, even if it was sitting there helping Mum fold the clothes.
Yeah. Do you think body shape has changed compared to functionally fit people back in the day to people that pay gym membership today?
Yeah, I think that has.
Yeah.
I think it has. I'm a massive fan of functional fitness. For me, I prefer functional fitness. I don't mind going to the gym, and I do go to the gym, but I prefer to be functionally fit because it always gives me a sense of satisfaction and achievement when I can look back and go, oh, I've done all my lawns, or I've pruned all my hedges, or, you know, you see the effort for your results. What about yourself?
I agree. I think functionally fit gives you an all-round fitness where you are using so many muscle groups in your body, as well as core, as well as stretching, where people go to the gym and they might achieve a similar result, but they're targeting certain areas maybe per session. Might be leg day, might be chest day, where when you're functionally fit...
Every day was leg and chest
every
day.
day you're doing everything day.
Yeah.
And an example of that, I had a guy, when I had horses, he was a farrier and he was moving into his 90s.
Wow.
And he was functionally fit.
Yep.
And to see him work with a horse was just a joy, a very strong man for his age.
Yep.
And because of what he did over so many years in his type of work, and to see what he did was for me was just amazing for a guy of his age. And he loved what he did. And I don't know how he did it, but the horses, they knew he meant business and they didn't muck about. But his strength and his back and his muscle tone and what he did was, functionally fit. He was an amazing man.
It actually probably helped him get to his 90s.
Yeah.
My grandpa was the same, even though, like, he played football for AFL, or the equivalent of AFL back then. He... even in the hospital, he would get out of bed and be on the floor and give the nurses a heart attack because he was doing his exercises. He swam in the ocean every day. He never missed doing his exercises. He never missed going for his daily walk. Just very different mindset. So there's lots of positives that come out of every generation and every experience. Some have evolved to be better. I think some have got a little off track. But essentially what I really like to do, and why we wanted to talk about this today, was more from that day of reflection around how blessed we have it here in the times we live, compared to fighting a war when you're 14 and a half, or going to war in a strange land and fighting an enemy you've never met, for a cause that you believed in, and the camaraderie and how that experience has shaped the world that we know today. Yeah,
I think, and what you said earlier is very accurate. We are removed as a country from conflict because of our distance from pretty much everyone on the planet, which is a plus for us.
Yes, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I do too. But because of the advent of technology we have, and you talk about young people and the pluses and minuses, young people today with what they can do with a computer, it's amazing.
Oh, they're phenomenal.
I can't even imagine myself doing half the things I see young people doing with what their computers can do, with building websites and coding, other bits and pieces they do. It's creating socials and media, and it's amazing. It's extraordinary, the skills where, back in the year, the kids might have learnt whatever it was, more using their hands or doing something more physical.
Metalwork, fabrication, tradies.
Exactly. So there's a lot of pluses in today as well. So we're trying to balance out here about, it's a different society now to then, and there's goods and bads in both.
I think one of the key takeaways from today is, how can you challenge yourself that whilst you reflect the journey that you've had that's brought you to this point, and embracing technology and helping our young people, how can we do that without the expense of emotional intelligence and human connectedness that is genuine and not involving a screen.
Challenging.
Because the last thing we need as a human race is to allow life to imitate art. We need to create the artwork through life. And therein lies the challenge of the human race.
You're going down a rabbit hole.
Oh, I don't mean to. It's just, it's a very deep, I don't know, days of reflection are really good, but these are just the crazy rabbit holes that I do go through. From an appreciation perspective of how lucky I've got it.
Yeah.
That I've worked hard for everything I've got. I'm very grateful that I have the people in my world that I have.
Yep.
I love the young people that I come in contact with, their skills and their knowledge around the technology and what they embrace now as normal is phenomenal. I don't quite understand it, but I love that they try and teach it to me. What I hope for them is that they can see the value in the human connectedness and actually getting off the screens and having a conversation face to face rather than it just being a technology connection. Because machines don't really show you genuine love and care.
Yeah.
They don't.
So true. That's a great challenge for anyone at the moment to undertake, and normally we do throw out a challenge. Yeah. Is to have that awareness and bring yourself back to the present day and where you are right now, and then expand your awareness to incorporate, what have I got around me? What am I thankful for? What can I see that's of benefit to me? What can I use, or what can I use around me that people didn't have from years ago that maybe be able to improve my life? We're going into a coaching sort of space now after talking about here and there, but having that awareness and consciousness about, okay, here I am right here and now, and here I am in a technology-filled world. This is really great. I can use this to my advantage. How can I do that?
Yeah. The word that keeps coming up when I'm listening to you, like, paraphrase what we talked about today, is gratitude. Realistically, it's a gratitude.
Absolutely.
That's the overarching we're back into days of reflection of where you're coming and where you're going to.
Yep.
They really do make you stop and think and just appreciate with gratitude.
Yep. I was grateful for sunny boys.
Especially when you got a free one.
Do you want to tell the guys what a sunny boy is?
No, they can Google it.
I love it.
So you can't do all the homework for them. So Google it.
Google a sunny boy. There will be a picture there as well.
And Dragstar.
And Dragstar.
Bike. We're talking push bike, not the Queen.
And
not the Dragstar Queen.
and maybe a Raz. Remember Raz?
Razes.
R-A-Z-Z, Raz.
Yep.
Google Raz, and it will give you a bit of a surprise.
Do you remember Fads? No, this is FADS.
Yes, and I do.
Do they still have those?
I think they called them Fads after they changed the name.
Yeah,
and you need to Google that as well.
So there you go, youngsters. Have some fun Googling old people's technology.
LJ, what a great chat. This has been really good. Thank you for the time.
No, you are so welcome. And I hope that it's just spark some curiosity in your own world to be grateful and to actually put some reflection into where you've come from and what you appreciate about the experiences you've had to now and how you embrace the future.
Yeah.
Every generation's got something that we can learn off each other.
100%. Send us some feedback. Come and say hi. And until next time, I will talk to you later.
Take care, everybody.
All the best.
Have a great week.
Bye now.
Hi, it's LJ and Dave here. Thank you so much for listening to the latest podcast.
We love what we do, and we know you get something great out of each and every publication.
So don't forget to jump on the website, coachtalk.com.au. Leave us a message. Let us know what you're up to, what you're enjoying, what you're loving most, and what else you'd like to see us do.
You can also find all of our content on Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, and Apple Music.
Coachtalk.com.au is the website.
Coach Talk. We've got you.